Yeah, welcome again to this channel. So today I decided to catch him to give us some insights into a particular topic that I've been thinking about. And that's because I tend to interact with a whole lot of people from various backgrounds. So today I want to help people, both those I've interacted with and people that I'm yet to interact with. And these are the category of people that come from a less privileged background. Because by the nature of what I do, I tend to meet so many people and I interact a lot with people from less privileged positions. When I try to tell them how life works, they struggle with some of the things I say. So today I'm bringing someone who comes from that same place to help us understand that these things really work. So I have titled this topic today, How to Move Your Life Forward If You're Coming from a Less Privileged Background. So over to you. How do you think that anyone born in a less privileged environment can begin to take steps to move themselves forward from that point, from your own experience?
Okay, to begin with, why am I qualified to talk about, discuss this topic? And when I say I came from a less privileged background, some people will doubt it, but I know that growing up wasn't easy. I remember some very funny, incidents, that happened while I was growing up. I remember in primary school when, I was sent home for not paying school fees. So, and of course, my parents were public service workers. They were being owed, so it impacted that there was, of course, low cash or low liquidity at home. And that came up over and over again. So, in this incident, in this particular situation, I was sent home for not paying my school fees. And then in a public school, how they do that is that they call out those who have not paid their school fees and they flog them. So I was flogged and I was sent home. I got home, I spoke to my dad and told him I was flogged for not paying school fees, and I was told not to come to school if I didn't come with my school fees. And he told me that there was no money, but I should go back to school. The next day I didn't want to go to school. I was sent to school, with the threat of being flogged, because I was told to go and tell the teacher that there's no money at home and the school fees will be paid when there's money, when they are paid their salaries. So I, out in fear, I got back to school, went to my class. And the same thing happened the next day. The teacher started calling out those who hadn't paid their school fees. And of course, my name was called. I was made to come out and she was about to flog me again. I told her that. And she was like, this young man, this boy, you were flogged yesterday and, you still haven't brought your school fees. I told the teacher that my dad said that there's no money, that when he's paid, he will pay the school fees. So teacher retorted that, is it your house that there is, do you think it's only your house that there is poverty? And that was the first time I heard the word poverty. That was in primary, either 2 or 3. Yeah, primary, no, not 2. Either three or 4, one of them. So I think it should be 3, and I don't want to mention the school, but those who know me know the school, and I don't want to mention the name of teacher. I have this memory, that incident stuck, and the name of teacher stuck as well. And he said, is it only in your house that there's poverty? I had never heard the word poverty before. I had to go look it up in the dictionary, and I saw the meaning of poverty. So I saw that our situation was described with the word poverty. And those were some of the things that, drive me. And Another incident, this was now not primary school. I'd moved from primary school, moved to government college. This is a secondary school where I went, and it's one of the best schools in, if I would say, the country at the time, and also the state where I grew up in. This was junior WAEC mock, and we were going to write our junior WAEC. And for those who went to the school, if you've not paid your school fees, at the middle of your exam, we had this vice principal called Whiskers. And you know the thickness of his cane. We had this thick cane who would go about and call out those who hadn't paid school fees. And then, he wouldn't have it easy on you. That day, I begged my dad reminded him that I hadn't paid my school fees and asked him to give me the money. He said he would come to school to pay it before the exam started. I told him that, if my school fees weren't paid, I won't be allowed to write the exam. So he promised that he would come and pay it. So I got into the hall, trying in the middle of exam. The next thing, Whisker just showed up, and he started calling out names. My heart was just beating. And the next thing, Uche, he called my name, and before I knew it, the guy, hit me with his very thick cane and took my papers. I'm not sure he thought it, but he just took my papers and flogged me out of the class. I was sent out of the class.
So did you get a result for that exam?
No, it was missing.
The mock?
The mock
was it mock?
Yeah, mock. Okay. I just had a dash for the mock. So this is a little picture of what childhood was, and that makes me that's why I think I'm qualified to say I came from a humble background. In the country at that time, teachers were poorly paid. Teachers were very poorly paid, and anybody who was a child of a teacher, or had parents as teachers or lecturers, you could actually qualify as someone from a poor background. So that was my background. So, and back to the question.
Yeah.
How
Just to
do you
remember the
move
question.
yourself? Yeah, how do you move yourself up? If you are coming from a poor background. And I want to be as real as possible. The first thing is your mind. You have to dream big. You have to dream big. And the biggest battle is in your mind. If you don't conquer the battle in your mind, then you've lost it. And the reason is this: poverty comes with follow-come limitation, mental blocks and limitations. Some people, when you hear fairy tale stories, they say that some people, poor people's children, move from poverty to become rich. It doesn't happen by accident. Why? Because poor people's children naturally, typically, become poor. Why? Because poverty is a thing of the mind, and parents transfer poverty to their children by influence, by watching them. There are limitations, follow-come limitations.
Sorry, I'm
that
laughing.
happens. Yeah, I tell you.
Do you want to break it down? What do you mean by what do you mean by follow-come limitation?
A poor person has a mental limit block to something. So when they see an opportunity, they just say, "No, I don't deserve this.
Okay.
It's too. I'm not qualified for this." So those things are part of what anybody with a poor background will be suffering from. So, and that's why you have to start dreaming big and tell yourself that, So in my own situation, I would say I am also lucky to come from a wider family that is not, as poor as I was. So I had example. I had cousins. I had, in my larger family, my grandfather, for example, was a well-placed person during his lifetime. So I had ample examples of people who were ahead of me, who were doing well. And I told myself that if these people could get to this point, then I would get there. So that was one inspiration. So I had some people who I could see and say, okay, these are my model. and I'll follow them. So, but even if you didn't, you could just start dreaming. Just start dreaming big. By dreaming big, set goals for yourself. Tell yourself, I will get to this place. I want to be in this place. One of the things I used to think about, back home during when we were watching NTA news, by 9 o'clock, and I'll see the people making decisions, top financial people, top this. I'll ask myself, these people there, these people in the NTA news,
how many heads do they have?
How many heads do they have? They are not better than me. I can be there one day. And this thinking informed the decisions I took, because I grew up in Little Owerri town, and so because I had this thinking, it was natural for me to leave that town in order to achieve. I found myself in Lagos, where I felt the top decision makers, the financial capital of the country was. So number one is dream big. You have to dream big. You have to conquer mental limitations.
Sorry,
in your head.
About dreams, when you talk about dreaming big, my understanding of how dreams are formed is that it comes from another information. So for you, how did you come or bring you've talked about coming from a larger family, you had other examples, other role models. So assuming someone does not come from that kind of environment, what else can help people's dreams?
Well, that takes me to the next point I was about. After dreaming big, because you have to start from dreaming. And usually people dream. Dream is something that in your wildest dream, you cannot see yourself there. You can't, in reality. So the only place you can actualize it is in your dream. So you start with dreaming. Then the next thing is knowledge. You see knowledge? Chase knowledge. Chase knowledge. Like anything. Embrace knowledge. Read books. Now it's not just reading books. In internet, go to news. Just read and read and read. Expose yourself to information. Through information, you go to places that you can't really go. Right? Through knowledge, Now, when we say knowledge, it's not just book, YouTube knowledge, Google knowledge, articles knowledge, different things knowledge. So, and good thing, we're in the era of knowledge. It's everywhere at your fingertip. You know how the Bible said, knowledge is crying for you, at the marketplace, at the market square. Knowledge is everywhere. So when you have internet, don't just use it to do social media, and look at reels and all that, doom scrolling. Acquire knowledge. Acquire knowledge. Just be a voracious reader. Acquire knowledge. It will help you. It will expand your mind. That's what it does. It will that's your little mind, that is limited by a poor background. It will start expanding and becoming bigger, and you can start thinking possibilities. It is very, very important. So the next thing is your environment. Your environment. By environment, the place you are staying comes with natural limitations. And I'll talk about, again, I grew up in Owerri. So, but when you got to work, and because of my dreams, I told myself, I can't stay in Owerri, because there are lots of limitations. One, how many companies are there? There is not, at the time, there wasn't even broadband internet there. Just so many limitations. So I said no. By the time, if you are in an environment, you inherit the limitations of that environment by virtue of being in that environment. So I had to migrate towards the west. So I schooled. I remember I had an option to do my master's in photo or UI, and of course I jumped at UI. I went to UI, and it was one of the best decisions I made. After that time, I started telling people, please, if you want to go to school and get quality education, please move towards the west, because I think they have more facilities out there for education. So from UI Ibadan, I moved to Lagos, and that's actually the next thing outside of leaving the country. That's where you get the best of everything, the best brains, the best people. So the interaction there, that environment opens you up, blows your mind. You see people you interact with, you work with people from all over the world, right? So that environment is very important. Of course, when I say environment, the location, which I've mentioned, as well as the people. That's what it comes with. So the kind of people you work and interact with, if you have to leave, your humble background, you need to leave your old circles. Those people that you're with, that you keep talking about low things. You gossip about people and just small, little things. You need to go to an environment with people where you want to get to. People who are already higher and above you, and discuss ideas and try to do something. I'll tell you about this. When you're in that environment and they come up with good ideas, don't let that your inner humble background voice shut it down. Don't come up with excuses. Just go with the flow. Say yes. That's one good advice. And the next thing is partnership. When you want to move from your humble background, please, your partnerships, you have to be intentional. And I always mention this without any shame, that I married up, in the person of my wife, the person I got married to. It was very intentional. It was very, very intentional. And I remember I shared with her one incident. So when we got married, my humble background, in my mind, in my typically I wouldn't go for a honeymoon. I'll go to London for a honeymoon, because my humble background. Why should you spend all that money, even if you had it and all that? And so I asked her, okay, where do we go for a honeymoon? She said London. And that voice, that humble background voice, I shut it. I said, yes, let's go. I had no idea how much it would cost, what it would take, how, because I'd never traveled before. And I said, yes, so let's go. So what's the first step? And she luckily, she had traveled before. She knew about all this thing. So what's the first step? And I just supported, provided funds, and the things we needed to do, we started doing. As we were doing it, I was learning, I'd never been to UK embassy before, because of my humble background. I had never been there before. Even eventually when we went for honeymoon, when we were traveling, going through migrations, all those were just new to me, but she had been there, so she was the one leading along those lines. So all these in a nutshell, if you want to move yourself out of your humble beginning, your humble background, you have to be intentional. You have to be intentional. You have to work hard. There's no shortcut to it. You have to be very intentional. But I mentioned it. One, you have to start dreaming. You have to start all those limitations that poverty brings follow come. You have to suppress them and start dreaming big. You have to. The next point I mentioned, you have to love knowledge. Be a voracious consumer of knowledge. Knowledge. I remember joining in school. I was in fellowship, SCM, and I joined the press club intentionally, very intentional. Because the guys in press club were forward-thinking people, progressive people. And, so I joined, and I remember one guy, I still my friend, what's his name? I'm trying to remember his name. Abangu Jr. Charles Odizra Abangu Jr. So, and he read an editorial, right? And he was analyzing it and breaking it down. And he encouraged us to go read editorials to improve ourselves, improve our, how you write, how you speak, and everything. The first time I tried to read a newspaper editorial, I slept. My brain shut down and I slept because it can be painful if you're reading it for the first time. Newspaper editorials, go and try it. Go read newspaper editorial. Yeah. So, and I started doing it over and over. And before you know it, I got used to, reading newspaper editorial. What it does is that in those newspaper editorials, some very good writers share very analytic thoughts and stuff. So it will stretch your brain reading those things. So knowledge is very, very important. Of course, I mentioned environment. Look at your environment. Your environment might be limiting you. I remember it's the lady who made a video that people, when she left the country, Nigeria, and applied for a Schengen visa, and she got multiple entry, which wasn't what she applied for, and said that your environment might be your limitation. And yeah, that's true. The environment places certain limitations on you, naturally. Then the next thing, of course, the people you interact with and the partnerships you form. So, and finally, be on the lookout for opportunity. Become an opportunity magnet. And what happens about an opportunity is that if you're not looking out for opportunities, they can brush you, pass you, and you won't see them. But the moment you start looking out for a particular opportunity, you see that it's everywhere. Just like if you buy a red car, you start seeing red cars everywhere, right? So that's what happens to opportunities. When you're looking out for opportunities, you see them everywhere. And some of them can transform your life and take you from a humble background to a much, much higher background. That's it for today. And I hope, you've learned one or two things from my own little experience of how I moved myself from my humble background to where we are today. We're still struggling, we're still pushing, but yeah, we're in a much, much better place.
Yeah. This is really, really enlightening. I just wanted to do this for my friends, my followers, and people I tend to engage with, just to show you that, irrespective of your background, irrespective of what you think is your current situation, you can actually make, progress from that point on to other points through taking and making deliberate steps and decisions. So I hope you found this inspiring and enlightening. I wanted him to share his own story because sometimes when we share some of these testimonies we share, people might think that, we have someone somewhere pushing things for us. But I wanted to do that so that you can see that we are just like you, we are taking steps just like every other person. So thank you for listening, and I'm happy to hear from you, or if you have other comments or anything you want us to talk about next time, feel free to inbox me. Have a good day. Bye.
Bye.